You mentioned PCBE, right? For those out there who don't know what it is, do you want to maybe just give us a brief overview of exactly how it fits into the portfolio?
You know, I've recently did a section at TechJam about this because it is a personal bugbear of mine. PCBE is being mentioned in the same breath by a lot of people as DHCI. And I totally get why. I absolutely get why.
DHCI replacement.
Yeah, and a lot of people are reusing slides because guess what? We all use slides when we want to. But it's not a rebrand. Dell. It's not a rebrand of DHCI. It is the control plane that sits on top. Now, for a lot of its use, I'd say even 90% of its use will likely be on some kind of DHCI stack. Sure. Yes, absolutely. But the strength of PCBE is its control plane. And if you think of it, for example, let's take the GreenLake platform. You know, you've got the 4 components of the GreenLake platform of Compute Ops Manager, Aruba Central, DSCC for the storage, and Flex for the services piece. And yes, there's more in there, but those are the general 4. Now, I normally talk about those 4 as a kind of reintroduction to what the GreenLake platform is, and so people know what that is at that point. I say, right, inside DSCC, we have, in the beta program, it was called HCI Manager. So the resellers that have been around for a while and were on board when we first started will know it was called HCI Manager because we were using it to remotely compose and administer the DHCI stacks that we had because DHCI was released before the platform was, and we wanted to make it part of the story and join it in because that was a request from the field. So that then meant that we had a tile in DSCC that I could then create VMs on these stacks globally, depending on what to do, away from the systems. And the channel looked at it and went, that's great, so what? Because we've got vCenter that can do that. We've got, we can go onto the array if we want to, and VMware has its cloud tool. So what are you bringing to the party? What are you doing that's different? And it's a fair criticism. It really is. If you don't put a spotlight, what's the point of those products? They're never going to survive. So essentially what we then did is we went, okay, well, let's add AWS into the mix. Now, all of a sudden, it's compelling. This control plane becomes hybrid. It can do use a wizard to deploy those VMs onto your private clouds, VMware, and it can use that same wizard to deploy EC2 instances and storage onto public cloud. And all of a sudden, eyebrows raised. They go, oh, that's actually pretty cool. And then we tell the channel about it, and then the channel that sell other things go, will you support those other things? So we added SimpliVity support and Azure out of the box. So you now have this tool, which can be sold as part of the solution, as part of DHCI, for example, that will allow you to deploy to these 4 different environments. Now, we want to go even further than that. And we made the announcement about our virtualization capability because, I don't know if you realized, Broadcom did something pretty minor and decided to drop a hand grenade in the entire virtualization market. And what I'm seeing with all of this is every other non-VMware environment will turn around and go, everyone's running away from VMware. You and I know that's not happening. What's happening is a lot of people are reevaluating and they're looking at it and going, now that their new SKUs are out, where they're bundling lots together in a more value-orientated package, that's quoting what Broadcom say, and I'm aware you sell Broadcom, but and we do. But some customers don't want all of that; they don't use all of it, so they want an alternative. So we are integrating a virtualization capability using KVM, QEMU, etc., into a stack. So now that we've added MP into our DHCI family, so those of you that know that Nimble traditionally powered the DHCI stack, so we now have a MP-based flavor of that. The Nimble flavor had a different array. If you remember, the image was different. So you had a normal Nimble array or you had a DHCI system. On the MP flavor, or the GreenLake for block flavor, it will be a utilitarian array. We're not editing the code on it. So to do that, obviously, we have to take the intelligence out of the storage layer and put it in the servers. So the servers are there, and when you release this, it can be Gen 11 servers, rack mount. It can be the Aruba switching and MP, and that can be your DHCI stack. Internally, we even refer to it as DHCI MP. Marketing-wise, we call it PCBE because you get PCBE with it. The control plane is fundamentally part of the ecosystem there. That stack is designed to be orchestrated and controlled from the cloud. And the reason that definition is worth mentioning, because I know a lot of resellers will have come from the 3PAR family and come from the Nimble families, and they will have sold lots and lots of DHCI. And it's knowing which solution to put in. MP is the one going forward, but we're still selling the existing ones because there's customers that still use them. But all of a sudden, you've got, with this announcement, and I know it just slipped in look, we're doing virtualization as part of the whole thing. But so now we have PCBE as a common control plane, and you can decide to deploy to VMware on DHCI, VMware on SimpliVity, our virtualization capability on MP, VMware on MP, AWS in the public cloud, Azure in the public cloud. And all of a sudden, that's why it's a very, very powerful story.
Sure.
And my advice to the resellers is tell that story, okay? If you tell that story, all of a sudden, the differentiation's there. And if say you're halfway through the sales cycle, which has happened to all of us, and you need to adjust the solution that's been pitched, maybe they've just told you about a requirement, you can keep PCB in there and just move between what's underneath. That's where it is. I understand why a lot of people have just copy-pasted their DHCI pitch into PCBE. I totally get it. But my advice to them is that you are missing out on the cool component of that story, of the potential of what it could be and how it can sit in a customer's environment.
Sure.
That's how I'd run that.
I've got a customer at the moment who's looking for a PCBE solution, but they're looking for it in co-location. Is that available?
We do have certain solutions. We do some work with Equinix, where they can put in their environment, so they can buy the equipment and it can go into Equinix for that environment. We've also got the use cases where, for example, we have a number of MSPs that we work with, because the SMPs, number of SMPs that we work with, and so it goes back to the previous statement of it depends exactly what they're looking for.
Sure.
Some people want PCBE, but they want to carve it up and want portions, so they'll probably go to an MSP that we work with. Some people will say, right, I want that environment, I just don't have the rack space, I don't have the data center space. That's where we would normally partner with, again, Equinix is the one that drops to mind.
Sure.
No doubt the legal department is going to stomp on me if there's an alternative. There are others. There are others in the market. But again, that adjusts by geo. I mean, you have a global reach.
Yes.
So I always say reach out to the geo lead and see what arrangement they have there. But we do have that. We do.
Right.
The regions I cover and the regions I interact with on a regular basis, those are the options that we tend to look at on that.
Why would a customer be looking at Private Cloud Enterprise over Business Edition?
They are two completely different things, and I humbly and wholeheartedly apologize for them having the same name. Private Cloud Enterprise is bare metal. That is the one where service providers, for example, they might want to... I'll say Ingram rather than mention a customer. Say you wanted to start your own service provider element. You wanted to have a storefront. You wanted the ability to deploy virtualized environments, cloud elements, bare metal, but you wanted us to give you a stack to get it up and running, with the software componentry and things. That's where Private Cloud Enterprise sits.
Sure.
It is, and it's not a small deployment, and I don't mean it as an underhanded way of saying expensive. Sure. I'm just saying, obviously, we all work in sectors, don't we? SMB, commercial, mid-market, enterprise, and those barriers change. They shift and slide depending on what's needed. But PCE isn't your typical, 3 hosts and some storage.
Sure.
PCBE has got a similar name, but they're completely unrelated.
Sure.
They're utterly unrelated. The word private cloud is
creating a lot of confusion in the market, to be honest.
Guess what? We just announced private cloud for AI.
Brilliant.
Exactly.
Completely unrelated.
Which is unrelated. But think of them all. They're all related in that they all have our hardware in them, and they all have our software stacks. But the thing is, in today's industry, you need to have certain wording to bind things together,
sure,
or you're not considered as being part of that movement. To be honest, and there are things in marketing that we'd love to change occasionally, but for example, if you wanted to do a healthy version of something, you'd have to call it something light or something diet. Or,
yeah,
you have to. It's psychology. It's in there. But private cloud enterprise is the more customizable, very often service-led, I would say, in my experience. It's not very often the customer will buy it and then deploy it themselves. They will ask us for a custom deployment of what goes into there. PCBE is very much reseller, customer-driven, just deploy. I've heard the question before, can I upgrade from one to the other? It's not an upgrade path. They're two different things that do similar jobs. Think like DHCI and SimpliVity. They're both VMware. You can set up VMs on both. They do it in completely different ways. One's disaggregated, one's HCI. It's always worth listening as to what they can offer and how they can offer it and the value prop of both. But it's not very often I see an environment or a customer requirement where both would be a perfect fit. So, for example, PCB can scale up to sort of 64 nodes or even more if you wanted to. And that's not even including the different clusters. That's 64 nodes per instance of DHCI. So that could scale really, really big, depending on what's needed. But once you get to that sort of scale, there's certain requirements that each customer has. And rather than leading into the requirement with the product first, I always look at what the customer needs are first and then start eliminating what doesn't fit. But yeah, it is an apple-oranges comparison. The only thing similar in them is the name.
Thank you. And I think that brings us to the end of our podcast. Nigel, thank you.
No questions from you?
No questions from me. I think I've pretty much covered everything I needed to ask. But I think if you join me around the corner for a race at Formula One, we've got HP in today, so that'll be our next port of call, yeah?
Hey, we need to
thank you very much for coming through.
Anytime, mate.
Are you available for the next one?